What's up, everyone? Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Chris. So, this is my May edition of What's Chris Been Reading. I did read a lot this month. Again, this is not the norm. I'm not on a mission. I want to make that clear. I have no reading goal. It's just I had another fortunate month where I was able to do long periods of listening to my books. I read 15 books this month and I had two DNFs. Yeah, I was a little disappointed about that, and the DNFs were back to back, so I was starting to get a little worried. I thought, oh, you know, am I getting like not burnt out, but are things just not, living up to what my expectations are? I don't know. But anyway, I had two DNFs back to back. In this video, I'm just going to give a quick sneak peek for anybody who may be interested. I did finish the new Stephen King book that came out on the 27th. Was on the pre-order, and I got it right away at, I'm trying to think, was it at midnight, or I think it was around 3 a.m. I think it came in. So maybe East Coast time. I'm not sure. I can't remember what time it was, but I got it bright and early on the 27th of May, and I read it and I finished it, and I will be talking about that book if anybody is interested in the new Stephen King release called Never Flinch. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this part up, and let's go ahead and get started on what I actually read this month. Okay, so first book of the month to kick off the month of May. I loved it. I thought it was a great book. And that is One of Us is Dead by Janeva Rose. You guys, I enjoyed this book. Looking back, I checked the reviews on it. It didn't get fantastic reviews, but I, for one, enjoyed it. It was a nice change of pace. You know, I read a lot of thrillers. That's my jam. That's where I kind of always gravitate to. And this one is a thriller. However, it was a little different because it was actually kind of like, it was dark humor, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So anyway, let me tell you about the book. So this is a book about these women. There's Shannon, Crystal, Olivia, and Jenny. And then there's like two supporting characters to these women, and that would be Karen and Keisha. So these women, with the exception of Jenny is an elite exclusive salon owner called Glow, and the city they live in is called Buckhead. And it's down south somewhere, but I kind of missed of like if there's a state. I don't even, maybe this is not even, it might be a fictional city. And it's very elite. These women are rich, and they are snobby. This book is kind of like Desperate Housewives meets the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Okay, so anyway, okay, so Shannon used to be like, oh, just the be all end all queen of the Buckhead Society. And she gets dumped by her husband. What was the husband's name? I don't remember his name. It doesn't matter. He gets dumped by her husband for Crystal, who is much younger. These are all middle-aged women, by the way, so they're like 40-ish, a little older. And then Crystal's like 25. And she's this sweet little Texan girl, and kind of innocent. And so then there's Olivia. Olivia is the worst, nasty, manipulative, conniving, sneaky. She's just, yeah. She's the backstabber, okay? and all these women have a rivalry with each other. And so Olivia kind of dethrones Shannon when she gets divorced and bumped out by her husband for younger women, and just make catty remarks. And yeah. And then there's Jenny. Again, she owns the salon, so she knows all these women's secrets and everything. She knows everything about these women because, they all talk and bicker, and a lot of times they're all in the salon together. And yeah. And like I said, then there's Karen and Keisha. Keisha is like Olivia's right-hand woman in the salon, and Karen just kind of like amongst these three other ladies, Shannon, Olivia, and Crystal. So, anyway, ultimately, somebody ends up dead, right? So the husbands are kind of involved. It's like I said, it's Desperate Housewives meets The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Just I enjoyed the book. Let's just say I enjoyed the book. I thought it was fantastic. I'm trying to think. There was a little bit of a twist in it. It wasn't like one of those, mind-blowing twists, but there was a twist there. And it was good. I enjoyed this book. It was fun. It was funny. Like some of the comments like that they'd make to each other. And even though it was, it's a thriller, at the same time, there was a thriller. Good book. Very, very good book. And I would highly recommend it to people. If you're into like that type of, catty women stuff. And the Housewives of Beverly Hills, New York, Jersey, all of them. I was a binge watcher of those shows. Lately I haven't had the time, so I've kind of fell away from it, but this kind of brought it all back for me. So yeah, check this one out. It's One of Us is Dead by Janeva Rose, and I gave this one 4 stars, and I thought it was well worth it. It was just a fun read. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the next book. All right, so let's talk about these 2 books that I started my month out with. First being Stephen King. Yes, because I'm on my quest to read 1 Stephen King book a month, at least. But lately it's just been 1. Stephen King's probably so far, one of my most very favorite authors. And for the reason being that when he writes to me, from my reading perspective, he creates mood, atmosphere, and characters like nobody else I've ever read. They become like real life people. I love his writing. I'm going to say this every time I start my thoughts on a book I've read by Stephen King. All right, so the book I chose to read this month by Stephen King was Mr. Mercedes. This is a trilogy. It's the Bill Hodges trilogy. It's also the book where Holly Gibney is first introduced. I love her as a character as well. She's just, I love Holly. In fact, she's got her own spin-off. She was in the book called The Outsiders, which was a fantastic book. I read that, and one of her namesake is just called Holly. Both very good. The Outsiders has more of a supernatural trend to it, and Holly, the book, has like a psychopath person in it. Anyway, so this is where Holly begins, and I thought I'm going to go back to this trilogy to where Holly got introduced. And the other 2 books in this trilogy are Finders Keepers and End of Watch. So the book starts out, it's a crazed lunatic. Totally, he's insane. And he runs down a large crowd of people at a job fair in a Mercedes. And he gets off on it and he loves it. Meanwhile, there's retired detective Bill Hodges. This was an unsolved case for him, and it still haunts him that he's never been able to solve the case. And one day, Bill gets a letter in the mail that brings it all back to life. And the letter is obviously from the Mercedes killer. Love the book. Characters outstanding. Bill Hodges, I just love him. Holly, Jerome, fantastic book. And the way he wrote this crazed man, to be inside his heads of his insane criminal mind, is just, it was just fantastic. Absolutely love the book. I'm going 5 stars on this one. Writing was impeccable as usual. I love the characters. It kept me on my toes. I just wanted to hear more. I wanted to be with these people. I just, yeah, love the book. So that's, oh my God, Mr. Mercedes, first in the trilogy of 3. Finders Keepers is the second, and the third is End of Watch, which I'm thinking I might just continue on next month with the next book. All right, I also read She's Not Sorry by Mary Kubica. Now, this isn't the first book I've read by Mary Kubica. The first one was, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Local Woman Missing. I think that's the title, is Local Woman Gone Missing or Local Woman Missing. That I read about a year ago, so I'm not real fresh. That one's not that fresh in my memory, but I do remember enjoying it. Anyway, She's Not Sorry. This starts with a woman, Megan Michaels. She's an ICU nurse, and she goes in for her shift, and they brought in a new patient, a young girl. I think she was 32, who appears to have jumped from a bridge 20 feet to the train tracks below. She's in a coma. And part of Megan's nature, you know, she cares about these people and took a fondness to this girl and her family. But as people started coming forward, they seemed to start to question of whether this was really, did she really jump or was she pushed? And as Megan starts to involve herself more deeply in this woman's life in a coma, she soon finds herself in danger, her and her daughter. And yeah, there was a lot of twists. I'm trying to think. There was 3 or 4 twists in this story. So again, I'm always up for a good twist. I love a good twist, and this had quite a few that I didn't see coming. One I kind of had a hunch, but one of them I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on here? So when a story does that, I tend to, you know, really start like getting really deep into it and sinking my teeth into it. So yeah, She's Not Sorry by Mary Kubica. Great book. I'm going to go with 3.5 stars on this book. Because that would be, you know, above average according to how I rate a book. Okay, so if I'm giving some 3.5 stars. To me, it's a really good book. I would recommend it to a person who likes thriller mystery, you know, with twists and turns in it. And yeah, so I'm off to a good start this month, you guys. So let's go on and see what I read next. All right, so this next book was not one of my favorites for many reasons, and it's my fault. It's a YA book, and it is That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. So I say this is probably my fault because I already know I don't care for young adult fiction. However, I kept seeing like it pop up in my YouTube videos and just a lot of people talking about it. And I thought, oh, all right, maybe this one's different. For me, it wasn't. Was it a horrible book? No, not at all. It just wasn't that genre that I could gravitate to. So basically this book it starts out, this girl, she wakes up on the side of the road. She's pretty much all bruised and battered and cold and just, yeah, she's a mess. And a local sheriff or police officer in the area picks her up, brings her to the station, trying to get information from her, what happened. She has no memory. She can't remember anything. She doesn't know her name, nothing. And while she's there, a man comes running in and, my daughter, and presents himself as this girl's father. And he's got all the proof. This proof that, he's the father, and her name is Mary. And so she gets released to this man that she doesn't know because she's got amnesia. Then at the same time, there's a story that's transpired in the town over where a young girl's gone missing. Her name is Lola, and she was last seen with her boyfriend, and now he is like the prime suspect because they can't find Lola and they think Lola's dead and they think he did it. So he's doing everything he can to find Lola. So then also his stories, oh my God. Also his classmates, he has 2 classmates who are also very good friends with Lola. They band together and they go on a sleuthing hunt to find Lola. And pretty much that's where the story goes. It's, you're following what's happening with this girl who doesn't know who she is with this man. Maybe her father, maybe not. And the 3 teen friends of Lola who's gone missing, them trying to find her. So it wasn't a horrible book. It just wasn't, I just don't like YA. It bores me. Reading the language of the younger kids, and I feel like I'm just too old for that. It just doesn't do anything for me. It bores me. So I did finish the book. Like I said, was it a horrible book? No. I mean, for a YA fiction novel, it was pretty good. If you like that genre, if you enjoy reading young adult, I would recommend the book to people who enjoy that. But for me, I'm going to give it, I want to give it 2 stars, but I can't because, well, let me see. Let me just check my reading journal here, amongst many other journals. I just want to see what my 2-star rating would be. How I would classify for myself a 2-star. Poor, should have DNF'd, but felt like it may get better. Plot was weak, easily forgotten, and lacked character development and felt confused. Well, I didn't feel confused, but yeah, you know what? I have to go with 2 because 3 for me is average. It was enjoyable. It had good characters. I didn't even care for the characters, to be honest with you. They didn't, So for me, this is a 2-star read. Anyway, That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. And like I said, if you like young adult novels, young adult fiction, check it out. It wasn't horrible. It just wasn't for me. And I was kind of bored, but I finished it. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about this next book that I read. All right, I am really excited to talk about this next book. This next book is called The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. Now, this is like a magical realism fantasy book. I just finished it today, and I loved it. It was so freaking good. Anyway, follows a girl. Her name is Cassie. She works in a bookstore. And through the years of her working in this bookstore, she has befriended a man, Mr. Weber. And one evening, they're chatting, and she's closing the bookstore, but he's sitting there. He's still reading his book. And she leaves and goes in the back room to do a few things, and he passes away. Well, she picks up his book. He was reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and there was another book with it. And she's looking at this strange, unusual book. And inside, he had an inscription in there that the book was for her. Okay, and this book is it's called The Book of Doors. She goes home. She has a roommate, Cassie. They're like best friends. And she finds that, and now there's really nothing in this book but a bunch of like strange images and pictures, and there's no explanation of what this book is. Anyway, come to find out, this book opens doors to other places, like whatever your mind is set on. Like, if you want to be on a beach, you've been to this beach before, you just visualize it and open the door and you're there. Okay, so that's just the basics, of the story. But this book comes with a lot of danger and evil and people, just characters, and she has no idea of this. Anyway, as time goes on, we realize what's going on now, and things start to happen. People start coming out of the woodwork, and because there's many, many other books out there, not just her book. There's like book of healing, book of joy, book of pain, there's lots of books. So there are people who want these books, and it was a fantastic story. There was tension, excitement. There's some time travel in it, and there's some really good characters, and there's some evil villains. It was a great story. If you like magical realism, if you like some fantasy, check this one out. I'm giving this one 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It was a fun read. It was like, medium paced. I'd say medium to fast. There were parts of the book that were, more rapid, and then there's parts that were more pulled back. I just loved the book. Anyway, so Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. Check it out, or let me know if you've read it and what you thought. All right, so moving on to the next book. All right, so let's talk about this next book I read. First, the surroundings. I am not in my home. I am away right now, but I wanted to discuss this book before I kind of forgot about it. Because you know how my memory is. Anyway, if you like psychological thrillers, this is a psychological thriller. It is What Lies Between Us by John Mars. And this book is about Lena and Maggie. And Maggie is Lena's mother, and she is chained in Lena's attic. However, she does come out for dinner and stuff like that. So it's a little bit twisted. And the whole while you're reading the book, you're thinking, who's crazy? Are you both crazy? What's going on here? And why is Maggie chained in the attic? So the book goes back between past and present and back and forth. And there's a lot of abuse and crazy stuff in here. It's a little dark. Well, it's a lot dark. And basically, like I said, the whole while you're trying to figure out whose side are you going to be on. And all in all, I thought it was a really good book. I rated it 3.5 stars. I felt it got a little bit to be a little too much. And I thought the ending was rushed. But overall, it was a good book, and it was quite the ride. We'll just say that. So let me know if you've read this book or if it's something you might plan on reading. And yeah, so that's What Lies Between Us by John Mars. Okay, one more while I'm on my little getaway here. Well, it's not really a getaway, but anyway. This one is Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. Now, I'm really starting to like this author very much. She basically writes thrillers, and she writes them well. This one here is about a woman whose child is abducted. Marin is the mom, the little boy is Sebastian, and the husband Derek. So he gets abducted, and a year into it, she finds that her husband is seeing another woman having an affair through a private investigator she has hired to help locate her little boy. All in all, good book. But from that point on, the book starts to turn into more about the affair rather than looking for the little boy. So she sets out on a mission to destroy this other woman. Her name's Mackenzie. And because she's not going to let this woman take her husband away after she had already lost her boy. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. It turned more into about an affair rather than the abduction of her son. However, from the middle, well, just over the middle of the book towards the end, it takes a turn. There are twists, and things really start to ramp up and get really good. So overall, good book. I'm giving it 4 stars. Like I said, the only thing the issue I had with the book was how it turned into more about the affair rather than the abduction of the child. Anyway, so have you read it? Have you read anything by Jennifer Hillier? The last book I read by her was Jar of Hearts, which I enjoyed very much as well. Yeah, let me know. So overall, like I said, it was a good book. And yeah, check this one out. I would highly recommend it. And again, 4 stars. Jennifer Hillier. Oh, shaken. Jennifer Hillier, Little Secrets. Okay. Okay, so this next book, All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. Love the book. Great book. It is a crime thriller. It follows a woman. Her name is Margot, and she's a journalist. And she has since returned to her hometown of Wakarusa, Indiana, and to care for her ailing uncle. He's got early onset dementia. When Ashley was 6, the neighbor's child, January, was found murdered. And while Ashley is here visiting and taking care of her uncle, another child goes missing in the next town over. So this starts to bring up all kinds of emotions and thoughts in Margot's head of, you know, they never caught January's killer, so could this be the same person? Well, she's getting very little help from the police department, and they're stating that, you know, the case has been solved and it's closed deal, but she doesn't quite believe that. So she goes and she does some investigating on her own and starts to uncover things that, you know, the secrets that small towns bear. And yeah, it was twisty, lots of turns, and kept my interest, made me want to find out what happened next, and loved everything about this book. I thought it was fantastic, and I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Let me know if you have ever read this book, or if you've ever read anything by Ashley Flowers, because I think I'm going to dig into her library and find out what else is available, because I enjoyed her writing very much. So yeah, that's We're All Good Here. It's either We're All Good Here or We're All Good People Here. Or All Good People Here. Anyway, let me know. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it, and great book. So let's talk about this next book. This should have been a DNF. I don't know why I continued on with it. This is called Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. Now, I had heard good things about this author. Maybe that's true. Maybe I chose the wrong book. I did not like this book at all. At all. There were so many things that I disliked about it. I'm going to try to... I have to be careful with my words here because I don't want to be flagged on YouTube. Noah is a teenage boy, and he confesses to harming young girls, little girls, if you could follow that. Inappropriate with little girls. So... obviously, the mother's devastated. The father's pissed, and he wants nothing to do with the kid. And he has a little sister, and you know the father's all upset about his little sister, and doesn't want the boy around his sister. He goes away for 18 months to like a facility, like a rehab place, to get treatment for this illness, we'll say. And you know he's released. The parents have to live in separate places because the father won't allow the boy to live there. I found the book to be very clinical. It deals with, again, I have to choose my words wisely, taking your own life in your own, you know. And the mother tries desperately. She's trying to stop him, and I didn't like how religion kind of was brought into it. You know, some people, you know, in my school of religion, what I grew up with, it is a sin, and, you know, you just don't do that. I just, you know, I can't say too much about the book. I mean, that is the book. He's, you know, he has an issue, and he's trying to be treated for it. And all the while, the depression and anger with himself is making him want to harm himself and end that. And like I said, the book was just, it was written very clinical. I didn't like the narrator in this story at all. I think that actually made it even worse. I don't think even the best of narrators could have made this story any better for me. I just did not like it. It's very dark, and I don't have an issue with dark themes in books. In fact, sometimes I welcome it. You know, the darker the better. But this one, yeah. I mean, there's things in here that you're just kind of like, wow. There are some oh my gods in here. Like, I can't believe this is happening. As a mother myself, I did not understand this mother at all. You know, a mother's love is a mother's love, but, you know, there are some lines that should be drawn in the sand for me. I don't know. I just didn't like the book. I didn't like it at all. It kind of makes me question whether I would read another one of this author's books. If any of you have read Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry, let me know and what you thought about it. And if you have a better recommendation, if you can compare this book to another that you've read and say, no, it's completely different. So, yeah. And I'm going to give this 1 star. I should have DNF'd the book, and I didn't. It was my fault. So, yeah. Lucinda Berry, Saving Noah. Big no for me. Anyway, so let's go ahead and move on to the next book. All right, I'm going to talk about 2 books in this segment. First one being Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. I heard about this book. I was watching Martha from Martha's Fragrance Corner talk about this book on her what she's been reading video. And it just intrigued me, and it sounded like something I'd really like to read. So I got it free from the Hoopla app and decided to listen to it. Anyway, what I really liked about this book is the era that it takes place in. It was 1975 in Baltimore. I grew up in the 70s. At the time of this book, I would have been 7 years old. And so there are a lot of references in there, the fashion, the styles, all these things that I relate to. You know, as an adult, I can remember it all clearly. All right, so the book is about Mary Jane. Now, Mary Jane is 14 years old, so this is kind of a coming-of-age story, literary fiction, character-driven book. And I guess according to the synopsis, it's a historical fiction. I don't know. I hate to think of the 70s as historical, but I guess it is. I just didn't feel that old. Anyway, you know, when I think of historical fiction, I'm going back like 1940 and before. But anyway, let's talk about the book. So Mary Jane, she's 14 years old, and she's raised in a very conservative Christian home. Parents are, you know, uptight, wealthy to do. Father's a lawyer. But Mary Jane, she's a good girl. She's, you know, into her books, and she likes show tunes and cooking with her mother. Well, she gets a job as a nanny. Basically, I'd call it a babysitter, but for a 5-year-old girl, for a doctor, and his wife, the Cohens. And so Izzy is the little girl's name. And when she shows up, the house is like nothing what she's used to. It's cluttered. It's just chaotic. You know, the mom really doesn't cook much. It's just different than what she's used to. Very liberal home. Very liberal. And while she's there, the dad, he's a psychiatrist, and one of his clients is a famous rock star, and he's married to a famous actress. So to get him better treatment, he decides to move them into the home. And it's Jimmy and Sheba. And so Mary Jane's exposed to sex and drugs and rock and roll. And through it all, she's shocked and at the same time fascinated with this life and, you know, things that are not spoken about in her house. Her house is very prim and proper, and it touches on, you know, women who are very liberated, and I enjoyed the book. I did. I enjoyed this book. It was, you know, there's really no plot, or it's just character study. It's just watching this young girl grow and learn about things that she never knew about, and you fall in love with. I actually fell in love with the characters of Jimmy and Sheba and Izzy's mom, and the house is full of love. Through all the chaos and, you know, freedom of speech that goes on in the house about sex and the swearing, and, you know, it's just a comfortable home. It's just a loving environment, and Izzy is just taken in by these people, and so she's learning about herself, and, you know, and her parents don't know what's going on in the house. It does come out, and, you know, that's another part of the story. But overall, this was a really nice story. It was a nice change of pace. It was a little bit of a cleanse for me, because I do heavily read thrillers, even though I enjoy these types of books as well. Generally, they're not talked about as much. So, you know, to find these books is like, you got to watch a lot of videos, read a lot of, go through, whether you're on Audible or go through the library list and just to find them and to know, like, well, I like this one, you like to hear about them a little bit, but you don't hear too much about these types of stories. And so when Martha started talking about it, I thought, okay, there's one I might enjoy. And I really did enjoy it. I did give it 3.5 stars. I'm getting stingier with my stars. I thought it was a fantastic book. But it was 3.5 stars, above average. And yeah, I enjoyed it very much. So that is Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. All right, so this next one. I'm torn with this one. All right, the next one is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm torn because I don't know how I feel about it. First of all, what's the book about? It's about an aging movie star, very famous, and she's since become very reclusive and private and hasn't been really seen or in the spotlight in many, many, many years. Her movie years were from the 1950s to the 1980s. In the 80s, she said, I'm done, and she just kind of fell off the face of the earth, so to speak, and just went off to live a private life for reasons which are in the book. So Evelyn decides that the time has come. She wants to tell her story and reaches out to a magazine. It's kind of like a Vogue type magazine. And she requests a certain writer, and her name's Monique Grant. Monique is fairly green and, she's not real seasoned, and she doesn't know why is Evelyn Hugo requesting her to write this piece. Well, she ultimately agrees to do it, and, Monique doesn't, the book is really is Evelyn. Monique's role in this book, the character of Monique in this book is it's like secondary. It's not a real big, there's not a real big story with Monique. There's a little bit there, but it's really about Evelyn Hugo. So, I don't know how I feel about this book. I gave it 3.5 stars. Because I thought the story was very well constructed and had nice flow and pace, and I liked that part of it. It kept me interested. I just don't know if I really liked Evelyn Hugo, the character. Like, I did. Parts of me did. And then parts of me didn't like her, because there were things that she did throughout the years that were very manipulative, reaching for those stars to gain fame. But at the same time, many of the things she did was to protect the people that she loved. So I'm still thinking about the book. I'm still kind of trying to analyze my feelings on Evelyn, if I liked her a lot at all. Well, I did, but I didn't. Overall, though, it was a good book. It was, I liked how the whole timeline through the years, 1950s and 60, 1964 and 70, and all the things that are changing through the times. The book, if you have an issue with, and this could be a trigger for some people, I don't know. If you have an issue with bisexuality, you may not like this book. I'll just put that out there. Yeah. I would like to discuss that a little bit more here, but I don't want any spoilers, and because I've got a lot of thoughts on the premise of Evelyn's life, but I guess it should be more directed to a discussion group, I guess, on this book. But anyway, overall, I think it was a very well written book. It was very good. The character of Evelyn was written very well. I just, like I said, I'm not sure I liked her. I had a lot of things about her I didn't like. So, but anyway, let me know if anybody read this book. It was a pretty popular book, so I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, and, you know, maybe in the description box below, let me know. If you have any strong feelings towards it or whatnot, message me. Maybe we could chat about it. I don't know. Anyway, that's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Taylor Jenkins Reid. All right, so I'm on a roll here. I ended up reading a lot of books this month. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this next book that I read. So I just finished reading this next book. Really enjoyed this one. This is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. This was it was fast-paced. It was a great thriller. Basically, we're following Mallory. Mallory is a young girl who is, at the time, 19 months out of rehab. So she was addicted to drugs. And her sponsor finds her a job as a nanny for a young boy named Teddy, who is, I believe he's 5 years old. So she meets Teddy and they hit it off great. Mom's a psychologist. Dad is, I don't know what Dad does, come to think of it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But the mother's a psychologist. Now, Teddy is likes to draw. And he's drawing these pictures. Well, these pictures are getting very disturbing. And Mallory starts to question this. And the mother puts it off with excuses. Because he has this imaginary friend, Anya. Anya supposedly tells him to draw these pictures. And he's explaining who's in the picture and what's going on. And so Mallory is bothered by this. So she digs down a little bit deeper. She finds out that there was a woman, Annie Bennett, who used to live in the cottage that Mallory's staying in on the property here where Teddy lives. And Annie was what was believed to be murdered, but they never found her body. So Mallory starts thinking, there's something to these pictures, and she's thinking it's a ghost, whatnot. There's a kooky lady who lives next door, and she's trying to help her, and anyway, the pictures become worse and worse and worse. Nobody's listening to her. Teddy's mother, Teddy's father, they're making excuses, whatnot, and the story starts progressing, and there's a lot of twists and turns in this book. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to find out what are these pictures and what happened to Annie Bennett. And so basically it's just a good supernatural type book. I don't know if I'd classify it as a thriller. Maybe somewhat, but it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I found it to be a page turner. And it was a fast read. The book was very fast-paced. The writing was well done. I really enjoyed the character of Mallory very much. The parents, no, you just don't like them. Yeah, good book. I would suggest that if you're into that type of thing, ghosts and supernatural, a little bit of thriller there, check it out. That is Hidden Pictures, Jason Rekulak. Let me know. Have you read it? What did you think? But I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars. It just kept me on my toes, and I wanted to keep on listening and didn't really want to stop doing what I was doing. So, yeah, let me know. All right, let's move along to this next book that I read. All right, so let's talk about this next book. So the next book is a romance novel. I generally don't read romance, but from time to time I'll pick up one. You know, sometimes they just look like they might be interesting, and this one kind of sparked my interest. And that is Broken Country by Clare Leslie Hall. This book follows a woman. Her name is Beth. Now, it does jump between past and present. So we get Beth as a young girl and Beth as an adult. Book starts out, Beth is married to Frank. They live on a farm. And one day, a dog comes along and it's going after their sheep. And the brother-in-law, Jimmy, runs out and shoots the dog. Right after he shoots the dog, a little boy comes running up. He's crying and yada, yada. And then the father. And it turns out the father is Beth's first true love from when she was a teenager, around 17 years old. And that's Gabriel. So we go in the past. We follow the story of Beth and Gabriel and how much in love they were. And he's just, so enamored and loves her and yada, yada. Then we come back to the present, and obviously they had broken up, tragedy and, the whole 9 yards. Of course, when there's a romance, there's always some tragedy and loss and heartbreak and all the things. Well, now that Gabriel has since moved back to the village that they live and reside in, things start to get stirred up. Now, Beth and Frank have gone through a lot in their life, and, they had some tragedy and loss of their own together. And Beth grows a little closer now to Gabriel, so things start to transpire, and then rumors start going around. And yeah, so there's secrets here between, obviously, Gabriel and Beth and her husband Frank. And so Beth meanwhile starts taking care of Gabriel's little boy, and things just start happening. And like I said, there's what I did like about this novel was there was some twists, and there's a little bit of a drama happening. I don't want to say too much, but yeah. So there was some twist involved, a little mystery and secrets. So that's always kind of fun, right? And, you got this love triangle going on. And so for the most part, I did enjoy it. It wasn't bad. What I didn't really enjoy the narrator. I thought she was kind of morose and just kind of, yeah. I don't know if it was the tone of her voice, but she always sounded so unhappy. I guess, she has the reason to be unhappy, but not for the whole book. But anyway, all in all, it was a decent story. Like I said, you got this love triangle going on, and the tragedies and loss and heartache and secrets and manipulation that went on in the book a little bit there, and death, and yeah. So it had a little something to offer besides just, a romance. So it was decent. I didn't mind it. I enjoyed it for the most part. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars because the writing was excellent. Excellent writing. Beautiful prose. I did enjoy that. I like when authors can use really nice use of words, but it wasn't too wordy, so don't take that the wrong way, because I also don't like wordy. I read one book and I was like, oh my God. I'm not going to go into that. I've already talked about the book in another video somewhere. But anyway, so yeah, let me know if you've read Broken Country and what you thought about it. And chat about it in the comments below. All right, so let's get moving along here because this video is entirely way too long. All right, this seems like as good a place as any to insert my DNFs. Yeah, I had 2 back to back. That really sucked. And I was starting to get worried. I thought, oh, geez, I'm like I'm in a slump or what? I don't know. Anyway, the first one is, now I picked this based on the title. Well, I read the synopsis too, but the title really caught my eye. The title is You'd Look Better as a Ghost. It just sounded so funny. And it's by Joanna Wallace. Well, I picked it because of the title, and it was supposed to be like dark humor, and I thought, you know what, I could go for something a little thriller, like with some humor in it. And I didn't find it funny. It wasn't, it wasn't witty, or, it just wasn't my type of humor. Now, I don't know if because it was in English, British, they do have different humor, but a lot of times I find their humor to be quite comical. And I thought, well, okay. Yeah, no, it wasn't for me. So basically we are following Clare, and Clare is like a part-time serial killer. And, she had an abusive mother, and she loses her father. And she's grieving and missing her dad, and she gets an email from, okay, let me back up. She's an artist, and she submits a painting, and she gets an email that she's been selected, and yada, yada. And then she gets a follow-up email later stating that, oh, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Well, this pisses her off, and she ends up meeting the person who sent her the email. And she chops them up into pieces, and, it's just silly. Anyway, she's in a support group now for grief, a grief support group, because she lost her dad. And like I said, she missing him. And I know I jumped around there a little bit, but I didn't finish the book. So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of the story. And somebody finds out that they've been watching, and they saw her, they know she's a killer. And so she starts like, worrying about it. And I didn't finish the book, so I don't know. I didn't like this book. I couldn't. Yeah, it was silly. It just was silly and stupid. I got through 50% of the book. So I got through half the book, and I was like, I'm wasting my time here, because this is just so, the characters, wasn't for me. Anyway, You'd Look Better as a Ghost by Joanna Wallace, and to me, the title was the best part of the book. That's why I picked it up. But, isn't that a funny title? It's catchy, right? You'd Look Better as a Ghost. Okay, anyway. Then the next book was called Mary, An Awakening of Terror by Nat Cassidy. This one was recommended to me based on books that I've been looking at. I said, all right, okay. It's a horror book, and the woman is perimenopausal age, so she's around 49, and I thought, oh, okay, yeah. Crazy perimenopausal woman, I can get into this. No, I couldn't. So Mary is a middle-aged woman, quiet, kind of, like spinster. And she talks to her little ceramic dolls she has. They're like little figurines. She calls them her family. And she works in a bookstore in New York City. She gets fired, and she ends up going back home to her hometown to take care of her Aunt Nadine. Now, I have to say, Aunt Nadine should have her own book. That woman was funny. Oh my God. And I'm not sure if this was supposed to have some dark humor in it too, but maybe Aunt Nadine was the humor, and she was hysterical. I need a book on Aunt Nadine. That character was fantastic. I mean, I was laughing every time she was brought up in the story. Funny. Anyway, this book was chaotic for me. I don't know. She's perimenopausal. The doctors won't listen to her. They're blaming everything on menopause. But meanwhile, these aren't menopausal symptoms. She's looking in the mirror and seeing melting flesh and bugs in her mouth and hearing voices. And I don't know. I've been through the pause, and that didn't happen to me. You know, got a little cuckoo in the head, but not like this. I couldn't follow this book. I found it to be a little campy. Yeah, couldn't follow it. I got through 53% of this book, and yeah, it was not for me. That's Mary, An Awakening of Terror by Nat Cassidy. Let me know, has anybody read either of these books, and did you have a different opinion than me? Did I miss something? Maybe I wasn't in the right frame of mind, the right mood. I don't know, but yeah, they weren't for me, so I DNF'd them. All right, enough of the DNFs. Let's go on and talk about this next book. All right, so I enjoyed this next book. Next book that I read was Everyone Here is Lying by Shari Lapena. This book follows many characters. So starts out with William. William is a doctor and a family man, but he's not a very nice man because he's having an affair. And the affair ends, and he's upset about it. He goes home and he's pissed off, upset, whatever, only to find that his daughter Avery is home. Now, Avery is not the nicest child. She got mental issues. She's difficult. She has I don't know. She hasn't really been labeled, but she's a challenge, and she's manipulative and nasty, and she's just something wrong with this kid, you know? And they get in a fight because he's upset already, and she's there, and she's being her witchy little self, and he slaps her, and he's upset, and he leaves, and she's being defiant and not speaking. So he's upset, he leaves, and then Avery goes missing. So while she's missing, everybody's looking for her, and neighbors are, starting to get a little weird about the whole missing thing, and we don't really know if the neighbors if there's some of the people in the neighborhood are lying, or everybody's lying. Okay, just like the story says, everyone here is lying. And the cops are trying to figure out, where is Avery? Who took her? Is she alive? There's manhunts out for her. Yeah. I enjoyed the book. I thought it was a good book. It was medium paced. I think it could have been... No, I was going to say I think it could have been shorter, but no, everything that was happening happened for a reason. But all the while they're on this hunt for this missing girl, we're trying to figure out, what has happened. Is this person lying? Is this one lying? Where is she? Is she dead? Is she alive? And who took her or who killed her? We don't even know. But yeah, I enjoyed it. medium paced book. Definitely not fast paced. I think it could have been a little fast. Yeah, I'm going to go with medium paced book. Yeah, I'm tired. Anyway, but that's Everyone Here Is Lying by Shari Lapena. And I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. Which for me, that means it's a good book. I enjoyed it. It was a good page turner. Am I going to be thinking about it for days and days? No. But it held my interest while I worked and while I cleaned my house. So, yeah, 3.5 stars. Good read. Let me know if you've read it and what you thought about it, or if it sounds like something you'd want to pick up and read. I don't know. I probably didn't even give you a good description of the book, did I? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder why I'm doing this. I think I just like to talk. Anyway, enough said. Let's move along to the next book. All right. So I just finished reading the new Stephen King book, Never Flinch. It was released on the 27th, and I was on pre-order for that book, and I finished it. Now, you know, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King. This book for me was not quite up to par with the others that I have read. It was a good story. It was not a 5-star for me. Yeah, so that was a little disappointing. Anyway, Never Flinch. This is another book that is added to the Holly Gibney series. Holly Gibney was a character that was introduced in Mr. Mercedes and followed in that series. In that series, the Bill Hodges trilogy was in the 2 consecutive books after that. Everybody loves Holly. I love Holly as a character. I think she's fantastic. So Stephen King took Holly and gave her own series where she appeared in a book called The Outsiders. That one had a little supernatural tie to it. That was a good book. Then there was a short story that she appeared in a collection of stories that Stephen King put out, and that book's called If It Bleeds. After that, she got her own book title just called Holly, which was another, well, you know, I'm not going to say it was another great book. It was okay. I'm going to put it right up there with Never Flinch. It was still enjoyable. It was good. Holly's just, she makes the book. And then we have Never Flinch. So Holly's made quite the run in the Stephen King multiverse, right? Anyway, let's talk about Never Flinch. This book is kind of like his 2 stories going on simultaneously, which I felt was, I don't want to say it was confusing. It was distracting for me. The 2 different storylines were distracting, and Holly was part of both those storylines. And the storylines do converge toward the end of the book, but still, going through the book, it was difficult. First storyline is, it's in Buckeye City, Ohio, and the police receive a letter or a note stating there'll be 13 deaths and 1 innocent. 13 innocents and 1 guilty. And this is a serial killer, and it's to avenge the wrongful death of somebody who was convicted of a crime that he was innocent. We don't know who this serial killer is, but innocent people start turning up dead with a piece of paper in their hand of the name of one of the jurors on the jury. So hence, it was, the jury, the guilty party, and I believe the judge. It totaled up to 14 people. So Izzy James is police detective, and Izzy is in prior books. So there's a lot of characters in here that carry over from other Stephen King books. Izzy James is in what book was that? She was in Holly, and she is now in this book, and she and Holly have become very good friends, and they were good friends. They didn't really get along in the other books. Anyway, they're very good friends. Also, Barbara and Jerome from Mr. Mercedes show up in this book as well. And Pete, who was Holly's partner in the other books, Pete has since retired, but he makes a small appearance too. Anyway, just to give you an idea, it's packed with past characters. Now, then we have on the other side, the other story going on. We're following Mary McKay. Was it Mary McKay? I just finished the book, you guys, like 20 minutes ago. The last name is McKay. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Kate McKay. Whatever. She is a women's rights activist, and she is on a tour doing lectures and public speaking for women's rights. Well, now somebody wants to kill her. And it's not the same person in the other story. It's a totally different story going on here. So for me, I felt, like I said, I didn't like the two storylines and trying to follow them, because you don't know who the serial killer is, and you don't really know who the other person is who wants to kill the women's rights activist. You do eventually find out, but even that became confusing. That's my issue. Okay, so that's a me issue. Maybe other people will feel that confliction of the two stories going on as I did. Now, what also I don't like, and Stephen King tends to do this, I notice it in a lot of his books, and I tend to overlook it. I don't like how he kind of brings politics into his stories. I could do without that. I shouldn't say I know, but based on the things he writes in his books, and I know where his political stance is, and I don't really care to hear. I just don't want, it's not why I'm reading the book. I don't want to be, it's not necessarily preached to. Don't do that. So I think this one was a little heavy into a lot of political things, the women's rights, in the pro-abortion and pro-lifers, and there's even another issue that is relevant to things that are going on today. I'm not going to spoil it because it's part of the serial killer. Wait a minute, was it the serial killer or the other killer? One of the killers. Now I see I'm already confused. I can't remember. It's relevant to them. So I don't want to give that piece of it away because it's a little bit of like, oh. But anyway, but overall, Stephen King is a fantastic writer. He writes people very well. He writes atmosphere very well. And he gives you that sense of place. When you're in a Stephen King novel, you're in the novel. You're at the place that these characters are in. He brings you along with them. And that's why I enjoy his writing so much, because I always feel like I am with these people, and I'm kind of like the transparent ghost walking along with them through the story. I always feel like that with a Stephen King book, and that's why I enjoy his books so much, because I get so immersed in it. And for me, that's the way Stephen King writes, and he just draws you in like that. You just become part of that story, no matter what. So based on that, I'm not going to say it was a terrible book, because there were so many good things about the book. I just felt I've read much better Stephen King novels. I am going to give it 4 stars, just based on, like I said, the characters, knowing them, and feeling like you're there, and all the things. So I am giving it 4 stars. So those are my thoughts on Never Flinch by Stephen King, and that was just released on May 27th. So check it out. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on it. If you're a Stephen King fan, I'd like to know your thoughts if you too happen to be on the pre-order and got it as it was released. So yeah, let me know. Anyway, that wraps up my month for May. I'm not sure. I have some thoughts of things that I wanted to pick up for June. Thankfully, today's only the 29th, so I am going to give my ears and my brain a rest for a few days, and I kind of want to focus on, you know, scrolling through the library, see what's suggested for me, and see if anything speaks to me. There are a couple things in my head that I kind of want to read. Of course, I'm going to do another Stephen King novel because my goal is to do 1 Stephen King book a month. Even though this month I read 2, but that's fine. In fact, the next book I think I'm going to read is Finders Keepers, which is the 2nd book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. So that's my little spoiler for June. I'm definitely going to pick that book up and read that one. Anyway, I think that's about it. Good month. Overall, it was a good month, even though I had those 2 DNFs. What are you going to do? It happens, right? At least I had the will to just stop and not go on any further. So anyway, let me know what you've read this month, what your favorites were, if you've read any of the same things I've read, and what your thoughts are. I love hearing what everybody's reading. Sometimes I add some of them to my to-read list. And, you know, that's how sometimes we learn about other books. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time you take out of your day and your lives and your busy schedule and you watch a video I've uploaded. It means everything to me. Please comment, like, and subscribe. That helps my channel grow. And you all have a great day, great week, great night, weekend, whenever you happen to be watching. And we'll chat about books again real soon. Bye.